Hello everybody, it's Mr. Sean. I hope you're having a fantastic day, getting outside and engaged with nature. I'm out in my garden just enjoying the greenery of all the plants growing around me. And while I was sitting there, I got to thinking about how plants absorb water from the ground up into their leaves, where photosynthesis takes place and the plant is able to make its food. Now, as we all know, plants absorb a lot of their water through the ground, through a structure of the plant called roots, and then it goes through the roots, through the stem, and up into the leaves. Now, what we might not know already is that plants actually can absorb water through all parts of them, through their stem, their leaves, and of course their roots. But the roots are the most important part of the plant for absorbing nutrients and water. Now, how does a plant get that water through its stem and into the leaves? Now, this is done through a structure known as xylem. Xylem are small, straw-like structures that flow through the stem and help the water get to the leaves through a process known as capillary action. Capillary action is the ability of liquids to flow through small spaces without the assistance of gravity or pressure. Now, you can just take my word for it, but I thought it might be more fun to do an experiment to help us visualize the water flowing through the xylem and into the leaves. To do this, you're going to need some celery, food coloring, and a couple of cups. So this experiment is going to help us visualize what we were just talking about. Now, in front of me, I got a couple of cups filled with some food coloring. The first one is red food coloring. The one on the far right is blue food coloring. And the one on the left-hand side is filled with green food coloring. Now, I already added it in there. I thought about, filming me putting the food coloring in there. But the cups I have already have a color to them. So it wouldn't really be all that interesting to watch. But what we're now going to do is we're going to take some stalks of celery. Now, you can do this with ones that have leaves on them, or you can do it with ones that don't have leaves on them. It's just a little harder to visualize the stalks that don't have the leaves on them as they soak up that food coloring in the water and distribute it throughout the plant and into the leaves. So I'm going to put one into the cup with the blue food coloring. I'm going to put one into the cup with the red food coloring. And then the one in with the green food coloring, I'm going to use one of the more yellowed leaves, one of the stalks with more yellow leaves, because it didn't get as much sunlight. It doesn't have as much chlorophyll in its leaves, so it didn't get as much of the green color to it. So it'll be easier to visualize the food coloring being soaked into the celery stalk. So we're now going to leave these cups and the celery for about 24 hours. We'll come back and see the difference in the color of the stalk and the color of the leaves. Now, I'm doing this outside and it's about to rain, so I'm just curious how it's going to turn out like that. But this is something you can do inside. I just like to do these sorts of things outside because it's just nicer outside. Just listen to the birds.
Hours later.
So it's been 24 hours so far, and it's a little hard to see that the water from the cups has gone up through the celery. Even with the food coloring, it's not too easy to tell until we get a closer look. So upon closer inspection, we can see that the blue food coloring has traveled up the celery stalk and into its leaves, and it's now sitting on the tips of the leaves. The celery stalk from our cup with the green food coloring also has a lot of that color easily seen in the tips of its leaves. However, the celery stalk with the red food coloring is a lot harder to tell. Can't really see it in the leaves yet, but we're going to let it keep going, and hopefully we'll see a dramatic change by tomorrow. So despite not being able to see the color in the leaves of the celery stalk from the red food coloring, it is very easy to see some of those xylem that flow through the stem of the celery. Each of those little dots are one of the structures of the xylem where the water has been sucked up through the stalk and into the leaves. So now that our experiment is done, I hope you try it at home. I hope you have fun with it. You can do this with pretty much any plant. Celery is easy to get and it's easy to visualize the water flowing through the xylem. But you could also do this with flowers. You could do this with a white rose, and you can turn that white rose into a multicolored rose. So if you give it a shot and you take a picture, send it in. We'd love to see it. But when you're working with food coloring, just be careful that you don't get it all over the place. Not that I would be so hapless. And certainly not on both hands would I be so careless with the food coloring to get it all over.